Hello and welcome to Neuroshambles, the podcast that aims to shine a light into some of the murkier corners of what it's like to parent neurodivergent kids. I'm Mark Allen, and every episode I'm going to be swapping stories with my guests about some of the frankly ludicrous nonsense we have to deal with on a daily basis. So, if you're anything like me and you're feeling frazzled, overwhelmed and pretty much an outcast from polite society, join me. Hello and welcome to episode 39 of Neuroshambles. As always, it's a treat to have you aboard, Neuroshamblers, but in particular for this episode because so many of you have contributed to this week's topic of the week. I'm going to be getting into that with an old Neuroshambles fan favourite, and we're also going to be talking about Neurodiversity Champions, tiny epic wins, and some cracking what the flip moments. So what are we waiting for? Let's get stuck in.
Meet the guest.
This week sees the return of the first guest I ever had on Neuroshambles, so I'm genuinely excited. She initially encountered my neuro-chaotic family through a local group she ran for families of neurodivergent kids, and I think we've kept her close to our hearts ever since. It's no exaggeration to say that her approach to parenting autistic and ADHD kids completely transformed the way that both Tam and I parent ours through this radical acceptance of their unique personalities and a very healthy dose of not giving a shit what anyone else thinks. This is starting to sound a bit like a eulogy. Don't worry, she's very much alive and I'm overjoyed to be able to welcome her back to the podcast. It is Jo Matthews. How you doing, Jo?
Hello, Mark. I am delighted to be here.
Good.
Not sure that my parenting style is something anyone should emulate, but hey, we get through, don't we?
Exactly, but that's the point. We're still here, right? And there's an approach that you have which we didn't encounter in the early days because we were, everything that we were doing made us think that we were wrong.
Yeah.
So seeing you and your approach to other neurodivergent kids and going, oh, there's a different way of doing this and you don't have to be trying to force them into neurotypicality. You can just embrace them for who they are. And it's been hugely empowering for us and hugely positive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, for those Neuroshamblers who haven't heard Jo's episodes before and don't know your setup, it's useful to know what you're dealing with there in terms of neurodivergency. So talk us through it, Jo.
I am the extraordinarily proud parent of two autistic young adults. George is now 21. Dottie is now 18, which just... I can't even get my head round when that happened or how that happened. Phil, their dad, and I have an approach of radical acceptance. We have tried to just embrace who they are and celebrate that with mixed results. We're doing okay. We're through it. And, they've reached adulthood happy and, for the most part, thriving. So, yeah, it's all good here.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Let's crack on with this topic because there's lots and lots to cover.
What's the topic of the week?
So this week's topic is one that I've been wanting to do for ages, and that is the subject of tackling ignorance. Because as parents of neurodivergent kids, we are, I think it's fair to say, no strangers to the interjections of people who are entirely unqualified to give us advice on our unique circumstances, but nevertheless feel entitled to stick their oar in anyway. So for this episode, I've taken a slightly different approach in that I posted a video on the socials asking fellow Neuroshamblers to tell me some of the ignorant comments that they've been on the receiving end of. And what I was expecting was maybe a handful of replies similar to what I'd already got in mind. What I got was just this glorious outpouring of people telling me all of the stupid shit that ignorant people have said to them that has got right up their nose. And it felt cathartic, not only sort of reading them, but just feeling the release of other people being able to get it off their chest as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through pretty much all of them to try and dissect everyone in turn and, where possible, suggest appropriate responses should any of us encounter said nonsense in the future. Are you up for this, Jo?
Oh, I am so up for this.
Good. Now, initially, this was going to be a standalone episode, but I think the sheer quantity of responses I got, and you know, I want to tackle each of them in turn properly. I think we're going to make it a two-parter. So this will be the first part, and then we'll tackle more in a second episode. So, strap in. The first one, because a lot of these that have come through, multiple people suggest the same thing. But one that I get a lot of, and I've heard personally, and I'm sure you have, is that it's just a label.
Oh, God.
So the ones I got were ADHD is the latest label that everyone seems to be getting. Autism's just a label, and everybody has a label these days. So, you know, similar vibe, but equally as infuriating. Do you get that, Jo? Have you had that before?
Oh my God, yeah, and still do, and from people who should know better. Not everything needs a label, and it's not a label, it's a shitting diagnosis.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? Like, it's a diagnosis. I mean, that's my go-to. You know, my go-to response is it's not a label, it's a diagnosis.
Yes.
And I think to a degree people assume it's a label because it's an invisible disability, if you like. It's not, you know, they're not physically disabled, they can't see it on the outside. So for some reason, people are skeptical of it, which is insane because there are lots of things you can be diagnosed that are not visible. Like, you know, heaven help me if these people tell me they've been diagnosed with cancer. Because I would be less than sympathetic.
Have they thought about yoga or meditation for that?
It's just a label, Sheila. Get over it.
Yeah, Sheila, sort yourself out. But I mean, it is exhausting, and I think it stems from autistic people are finally being recognised and diagnosed,
yes,
rather than having to go through life struggling and not understanding why this is all so hard. Mm-hmm. But the ignorant, the Sheilas who walk among us, see that as, oh, well, everyone's autistic now. It's that, you know.
Yes.
They're all getting that label. And it's just bullshit.
Well, it is, but they just see the rise in diagnoses, right? And not just the rise in people getting diagnosed, but also the fact that people are much more open about it. People are talking about it. It's on the socials, and which is phenomenal. It's hugely empowering to neurodivergents to be able to see other people who are experiencing similar issues and being almost proud and defiant with their diagnosis. And I think long may that continue, that people normalise diagnosis and normalise talking about their neurotype.
Yes. And so this might be the moment. This is the moment, Mark. For I know you were shocked when I said I'd done research.
Oh, okay.
Because my general approach is just to wing everything.
Yeah.
But I stumbled across Rube Waddell.
Okay.
So this idea that autism didn't exist in my day. There weren't all these people. Let me tell you about Rube. Rube Waddell was born in 1876. Sorry, I've got the giggles because the man's a legend.
Okay.
His biographer later described him as a decidedly different sort of child.
Oh, I like that. Decidedly different.
He was so little Rube's decidedly different. At the age of 3, Rube wandered over to a local fire station and stayed there for several days.
I mean, at this point, you've got to question the parenting. I mean,
or they just accepted, listen, my man likes fire trucks, leave him. So little Rube grows up and he becomes exceptionally good at baseball.
Right.
But I've got to read you this from his Wikipedia page because it had me in stitches.
Okay.
He was notably unpredictable.
Okay, yeah.
Early in his career, he once left in the middle of a game to go fishing.
Okay.
He also had a long-standing fascination with fire trucks and ran off the field to chase them during games on multiple occasions.
I mean, if that doesn't scream special interest, I don't know what does.
He would disappear for months at a time during the off-season, and it was not known where he went until it was.
Did they check the fire station? Because that'd be my go-to.
Presumably, but no one could have guessed where Rube actually was because he was wrestling alligators in a circus.
This guy's unbelievable. I've never heard of him before. So, but what really strikes me here is he's still getting picked for the team. He's that good at baseball. They're putting up with his antics.
He was so good. He was easily distracted by opposing fans who held up puppies, which caused him to run over and play with them, and shiny objects, which seemed to put him in a trance.
This is unbelievable. And that was when? 1870?
He was born in 1876.
Right.
And do you know the really, really sad thing? Because I then became just quite fascinated with this guy. Rube developed a dependency on alcohol because, of course, he fucking did, because he was self-medicating.
Yeah.
In a world that, we don't have these labels, we don't have... And he died, I think he was 37 when he died. So... Rube, for me, is a shining example of course, there have always been autistic people.
Yeah.
God bless him. And there must have been so many Rubes out there.
Yeah, well, they are. I mean, you look at it historically, people are, there are very credible theories that a lot of incredibly gifted humans were neurodivergent. So they're saying, like Da Vinci. I mean, you look at the shit he did.
Yeah.
He invented his own style of writing so people couldn't nick his ideas.
Yeah. And I mean, we've all got a strange uncle with a stamp collection, and
I mean, I've got no Da Vinci's in the family, but
that gene skipped our bloodline too.
But if you look at it historically, there were, as you say, loads of Rubes existed and have always existed, and they are, unique and different, but there wasn't the process of diagnosis back in those days. There wasn't the understanding of autism. They were just described, and I've heard my parents describe people like this as just a bit eccentric or just a bit odd.
Yeah.
I don't think there was necessarily a stigma attached to it, but they weren't understood, and they were very definitively seen as outside of the norm.
Yes, and will have gone through life internalising that struggle and internalising that idea that somehow they are defective. And I don't want that for my kids.
No,
I don't want that for any other kids.
I mean, you wonder whether Rube was actually masking as well. You imagine
can you imagine if he'd unmasked? Anything could have happened.
So, just to bring it back to autism is not just a label. It is a diagnosis. It's a diagnosis for something that has always existed. It is probably much more prevalent than we realise, and we're only just starting to understand and get to grips with. And that's why a diagnosis has gone through the roof. And I can see from the point of view of the person complaining about it, because they don't get it either. It's because it's seen as a new thing. It's just more visible.
Yes,
and people are suspicious of it because it's probably quite shocking to a lot of people how many people are neurodivergent.
Yes, and what that might mean for everyone as a society if we are starting to say, well, no, it's not okay to carry on with the status quo.
Yes.
We might need things to change because there is a large group of people at the moment who are marginalised through neurotypical norms.
Yeah, and they always have been. And I dread to think how damaging that's been to people. I speak to guests of mine who say that late diagnosed, that took them a long time, and it's really damaged them. My conversation with Pete Warmby was really kind of interesting because he said, "I'm now at a point where I can unmask. I don't know if I'll ever be able to fully unmask to the point that I know who I am, because I've just been through decades and decades of masking." Yeah. So the earlier that we can get this diagnosis and help people understand the way their brain works, the way their profile works, and to advocate for themselves and to understand a little bit more about themselves, I think the better.
Absolutely. In terms of mental health, self-esteem, everything that allows adult humans to live a successful, productive, happy life has to start with accepting who you are and celebrating who you are.
Yeah. As one of our listeners pointed out in the responses on the socials, said, our kids are already being labelled. They're already being labelled lazy, easily distracted, naughty, careless, weird, disorganised, never listens. They're all labels. And I know what label I prefer them to have.
Yeah.
Which is neurodivergent.
Absolutely.
Neuroexceptional. Now, a lot of the responses that I had all fall under one sort of umbrella category, which is people looking at our neurodivergent kids and the way that they present and blaming the parents for it.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Right. And I was sort of trying to group them, and so many of them fell under this category. So I'm going to go through some of them in turn.
Oh, God.
And I'll say them verbatim what people said to me on the socials so we can unpick it, right? One of them was, stop mollycoddling your child and get them to learn how to do what they need to in order to survive. My initial response is, you know what they need to do to survive? They need to steer clear of people like you. You fucking psycho. What do you mean? Stop mollycoddling them.
And what
Where do you start?
where do you even unpick that? There's this idea, isn't there? And we hear it a lot in schools, and they need to develop resilience.
Yes.
They need to become more resilient. And these children and young people are some of the most resilient people I've ever met in my life.
100%. Yeah.
And the hard of understanding among us just don't see that, and just see that, oh, well, you should force them even more to try and fit into a frankly hostile world. And yeah, I'm calling bullshit on that one.
Yeah. This resilience thing is the one that keeps coming up. And because it is like the amount of resilience it takes for my kids just to leave the fucking house is like unfathomable to people who don't understand neurodivergency and haven't done the research and don't listen. Because there are people that you tell this and they still don't really get it. But, to go into school, to even be in school, for Otto in particular, is incredibly overwhelmed by that. And it was, incredibly overwhelming for Jay and quite damaging for Jay. And just to be in that environment, the amount that it takes to mask or to try and self-regulate without standing out. There are so many things that they're having to go through simply to be in the classroom.
I wonder if I've hit on something here. I've had an idea. You know those air horns that make the really loud noise?
Yeah.
I'm just saying, maybe parents should start just carrying one of those, and when they're told their child should be more resilient or they should stop mollycoddling their child, they just sound that in the person's ear and say, you just need to develop a resilience to this.
I love it. Yeah, that would really illustrate your point.
Yeah.
Beautifully. And draw attention. It's a bullshit foghorn, right?
The bullshit. Maybe it could say bullshit.
Sorry, you're just going to need to get used to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, mollycoddling as well. This is, there's a similar vein of a lot of the things that people said was stop mollycoddling your child. Or another one is tough love. They just need some tough love. Or they need more discipline. This is the theory or the understanding that they're not behaving the way you want them to behave. So, let's just beat it out of them. I'm sure you can beat autism out of them, right? If you
had a big enough stick, Mark, it's got to be worth a go, hasn't it?
Obviously, my parenting style has changed since I've understood my kids' neurotypes and learned a bit more about it. Because I think initially I was a bit more sort of like, this is what I want you to do and you're going to do it. I mean, I was never, ever going to be on the lines of beating them. It's not my vibe. No. But I probably was on that, I am the grown-up and this is what I say and you should do that. But you learn all of the stuff around that of why they're not able to do that, and it always comes back to this, that you're setting expectations that they're not able to meet. And the reasons they're not able to meet it is not because of defiance. It's not because they're deliberately being dickheads. It's because they're not able to meet them for a myriad of reasons that you need to unpick, because everyone's profile is different, and then reset your expectations and reframe your expectations based on what they are able to achieve.
Yes. I mean, obviously, my two are on occasion being dickheads. I mean, they can be absolute dickheads. But, I mean, we've had recently a sort of someone who should have known better said about Dot, well, you give in to her too easily.
Oh, that's another one we got. Yeah.
Oh, because what had happened was she'd become overwhelmed, and we needed to leave. We needed to just, and as her parents, we recognise when she's reached that point of, okay, we just need to get you out now and go home and decompress. But it's this idea that somehow, I don't know, we should be tougher, we should be more in charge, in control.
Yes.
And
but it's also, there's the implication there that they're wrong. You know, that the kids are wrong to be behaving the way they are, you know, and it's a very parent-led decision-making process of like, this is how you're supposed to behave and this is how you're supposed to be. And if you're not being like this, then it is my job as a parent to teach you how to behave like this.
Yes.
And that is very different in the way that I parent and the way that I now see my kids. All behaviour is communication. We have that a lot, right? You know, they're communicating that they're not able to cope. So shouting at them, beating them, like, you know, refusing to mollycoddle them is just, it's just,
and it comes back to because the disability is hidden, so they would be horrified if you said to a child in a wheelchair, well, you just need to try harder to walk. I know you can do it if you try. And
get up
will.
the stairs.
I'm the parent. It just, you wouldn't dream of it. It would be child abuse. So this notion that somehow, I don't know, we should tell our neurodivergent kids, well, you just need to try harder. You can't leave. You must sort of tolerate this situation. I get, the bullshit foghorn is sounding. I want a bullshit foghorn.
I mean, because that kind of comment as well, that you let them win too much. Like, firstly, it's weirdly combative as well, because it's like a battle of wills, right, between you and your child, and they're just being willful and you need to double down and withhold privileges or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Punish them until they get in line. A comment like that is not only criticising your parenting, it's criticising the child as well.
Yes.
It's like, what kind of... I just worry for how these people view the world. That everything is, you know, is a battle of wills, or everything is a win or lose thing, instead of looking at it collaboratively and going, well, you're obviously not able to do what I'm hoping you can, so let's look at it. Why not? Let's collaborate, right?
Yeah. But that notion of win or lose, and that parenting as a battle and children as an opponent is just bonkers.
Another one that you get is, can't you just make him do that as well? Have you heard that? I mean, firstly, have you met my children? PDA is like, you meet one PDA child and you'll soon realise, no, you cannot just make them do it.
There is no make them.
And also, do you think we haven't tried that? Do you genuinely it doesn't work. Well, I've tried for a long time, and it absolutely led to a breakdown of a relationship with my child early on. Me and Jay were at loggerheads all the time because I was trying to make him do stuff. And it was only when I educated myself on his neurotype and different strategies that I realised that, all right, let's do this in a different way. And I think all of this is couch, this sort of, you know, it's bad parenting, they need more discipline, tough love, you know, there's an implication that we're not doing it because we're being lazy.
Yes.
Right. And that is deeply frustrating because, as we know, it is the opposite of lazy. It is so much harder to talk to your kids and help to understand where they're coming from. A lot of the times when they aren't able to articulate that, and to be dynamic in your approach and to be flexible in your approach, rather than just going, I'm pointing at this thing I want you to do, and I'm going to keep shouting and pointing at it until you do it. That is far lazier.
You will obey. You will obey. And I think maybe that's what people don't see. They don't see... Well, firstly, they don't see what will happen if I do start locking horns and laying down the law in your front room, Grandma, all hell's going to break loose, and none of us want that. So let me just deal with this the way that it works.
Yes.
And they don't see the thoughts and the care and the understanding. That goes into parenting, particularly PDA kids. And Oh, they're just tits, aren't they, people? I just don't...
This is, that kind of comment makes me worry about their relationship with their presumably neurotypical kids as well.
Yeah.
Because, what sort of relationship is that setting up for your own kids that you're not being collaborative or open with them? And these kids, these neurotypical kids, probably would respond just as well as our neurodivergent kids to that approach. It's a very... quite an old-fashioned approach, I think, of just going, this is what you're going to do, and I'm going to force that through. Maybe that's the response you say to them.
Yeah.
When they blame your parenting, going, look, it's not my parenting that I worry about. It's yours.
Good. I like that. Yes.
Because if you're insisting that your kids do what you want them to do, how close do you think you're going to be with your kids when they're finally free of you? You tyrant.
I don't know if we can call people
why not?
tyrants,
They call us all kinds of shit. Why not? Monster? Can we call them a monster?
Monster. All right, monster's acceptable. Oh.
Another one I've someone sent in, which is, wow, really. I think I've heard a variation of this before, is if they won't go to school, you should make their home life more unpleasant. Right?
That's absolutely insane.
Have you heard that?
That is.
Yes. Because it's too enjoyable at home. What are you suggesting? Let's put broken glass in their bed. Let's release a tiger into the living room so they'll be glad to go to school.
I know. And it's this sense that they're not going to school because we're somehow enabling that.
Yeah.
We are somehow, again, mollycoddling.
Yeah.
Allowing our child to do whatever the flip they want, and oh my God, we're not.
Yeah, and it goes back to the theory, which is covered in The Explosive Child, which I have read and absorbed a lot, which is that all kids want to do well. Yes. They want to go into school if they can. The reason they're not going into school isn't just because it's really comfortable at home and that it's less comfortable. It's because they are massively overwhelmed. They're very often traumatized by the experience of going to school. So 100%. To be honest, if I did have a tiger running loose in the house, Jay would still probably take his chances.
He'd be like, I'm going to have a go with the tiger. Yeah.
Because it's a similar level of dysregulation, right? It's for a lot of our kids who struggle to go to school, it's because of their nervous system being massively triggered by what they face when they go in there. And obviously it might not be, akin to a tiger, but they're probably feeling something as extreme as that when their nervous system, particularly PDA kids, are just triggered into that overdrive.
Yeah. And it's interesting, isn't it? This sort of, we live in a culture, certainly in the education system, of parent blaming.
Yeah.
So why is the default setting that we should make home less appealing? Why is it not that they should make school more appealing?
Another comment I had from someone was like, a neighbour called my parenting wishy washy. So
what does that even mean?
I'm assuming that it's directed at someone who is pursuing a low demand parenting approach because, crucially, it works for them. That's not how you start doing it initially. Yeah. I don't think. When a toddler is trying to poke a knitting needle into a plug socket, that's not how you start parenting.
You don't start with the, okay, do you think that's a good idea?
Yeah,
no. You keep them alive.
Yeah, that's the starting point. But this assumption that low demand parenting is seen as being wishy-washy because, again, these people have presumably been brought up in a different way and they have their approach which they think works, which is a more didactic, more autocratic, disciplinary approach to it. And you get that a lot, isn't it? Like people saying, "Oh, you're too permissive."
Yes, you give in.
Yeah, you give in.
Let them do what they want. Yeah.
And wishy-washy is so derogatory as well. Like you don't think about it, that you're just sort of just letting him get away with shit.
Yeah. I have so many follow-up questions that if the listener hears this, please, just because I have so many questions. The main ones being, what the flip do they mean, wishy-washy? Sorry, what? And also, how in God's name is it any of a neighbour's business how you choose to parent your child?
Yeah, yeah.
Even
Exactly.
if you were the worst parent in the world, which I'm fairly certain you're not, how's it the neighbour's business? Oh, Mark.
I think typically these comments come from an older generation.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm making an assumption there, but I think the word wishy-washy seems to be from a pretty old generation. And these are people that don't have much else to do, right?
Well, why don't you hop over the fucking fence and do it better then? Because...
Well, you do get that though sometimes. You do get people that think that they can do it better. That, oh, you know, give me a weekend with them and I'll sort them out. That kind of shit. It's like, I can think of nothing worse, you know, for my kids than to give you a moment alone with them.
Yeah.
That's never going to happen, dude.
Although, are you not quite tempted
Oh.
just to see the person who's made this pig ignorant comment just very quickly realise that they've made a terrible mistake?
They will break before my kids break. Can you imagine just like them seeing him running him out of the house going, oh, what's wrong? Another one we get is children need boundaries. I had this from a number of people. They just need boundaries. Again, it's a criticism of what is perceived as lax parenting, because obviously the boundaries that they're talking about are your boundaries that you're setting, not their own boundaries. You know, which is, I think, what we're more mindful of as parents of neurodivergence and mindful parents, that they have boundaries. They're communicating their boundaries.
Yeah.
Might not be in a way that you want.
But maybe. And I think also, because we've touched on gentle parenting, it's not that there are no boundaries.
Yes, yeah.
I don't know. What I always say to parents is, right, you have to pick your battles and then have a good look at the battles you've picked and put at least half of them down because you've picked too many.
Yeah.
So for me, in clubs I run and at home, the very hard boundaries are around safety.
Yeah.
I can't and won't let you stick the knitting needle in the socket. But everything else, does it matter?
Yeah, I mean, I remember a comment that you said about swearing. The boundary around swearing was that, you know, like if you want to swear, to say like, this is really fucking hard, or I dropped the fucking pan again, or whatever it was. That's okay, but you don't swear about someone. You don't say you're a stupid fuck.
You don't swear at someone. Yeah.
Which seems, that's fine, because there's other things at play. If you're putting in that boundary because you're offended by the language, then
Mark,
that's a battle you need to let go of.
Let me tell you.
Go on then.
I'm having one of those deep and lasting shame moments.
Okay.
So last week, I took a group of 18 kids, all autistic, between 10 and I think our eldest was 15, to one of those outdoor activity centres. We had an absolute blast. Their behaviour, they were like swearing feral raccoons. They were amazing. But so the reason I'm kind of laughing, there was another group there who were much younger and turned out to be a Christian.
Oh.
A Christian club.
I mean, I blame the person that booked those sessions side by side. That's not on you.
We had to share a dining room, and at one point I walked in with my lot just as one of them was going, fucking no, fuck. And just at that moment, their leader said to this row of beautifully lined up, sat, gorgeous kids, so who would like to say grace?
Oh, you're kidding me.
Oh, my God.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. I mean, I don't know what the moral of that story is.
I mean, yeah, like you say, it's about choosing which boundaries to set, which to enforce, and also which ones to negotiate. Because I think we need to negotiate. Boundaries are negotiable. And I think the implication that we don't set boundaries is stuck in this fallacy that we're the only people, as the parents, that can set the boundaries. Yeah. And I think it's important to say, no, we set boundaries. We just are, but we're not the only people that have an input into that.
And I think for a lot of autistic people, the why is really important. And in that, like, dictatorial parenting style, it would be, well, you need to do this now. Why? Because I say so.
Yeah.
And actually, that doesn't work for autistic kids. That will just make them cross. So
Yeah. But also, it's quite interesting when you open up your mind to the why. And go, actually, why is that? Why is that important to me? And it's exhausting sometimes because you don't want to have to explain everything all the time. It's like, no, why can't I go to the supermarket in a onesie? No reason. No, fine.
And then you might actually think, oh, yeah, actually you can. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, very often I do, because it's again, responding to their input and what they want.
Yeah.
So, so what response? They just need boundaries. I think it's like they have boundaries. It's just that, they're just not your boundaries.
You might not like
your boundaries are not a consideration for me right now, Sheila. I don't know why Sheila's getting the shit here, by the way.
Sheila is the embodiment of
Sheila
every
is.
arsehole.
Another one that I've had from a listener that said, you just need to push them out of their comfort zone a little bit. Then they'll see how fun it is. Yeah. Again, it's just like, I'm going to force you to have fun.
You will have fun. You will have fun now. You will do it on my terms.
Yes.
I mean, yeah.
Isn't this fun, Toby? That's like, it's Toby's under the table crying.
Because there's a tiger.
Come on, Toby.
Come on,
Morris
Toby.
dancing is supposed to be fun. It's like Toby's triggered by bells. And
I mean, it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because I'm all for all humans kind of sometimes just pushing yourself a bit out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
But also, people who make those sorts of comments, it's the absolutely innate lack of respect and understanding of what we do as parents every day.
Yeah.
Which is constantly evaluating, can my child manage this?
Yeah.
Could my child manage this thing if we just make this little adaptation?
Yeah.
And it's just an assumption that we're just sat at home going, no, don't want to. No,
Can't be bothered. Yeah. And it's like you say, there is an element of validity to it in that, I'm constantly having to reassess what they are capable of managing on a daily basis, because it's not just, it's not just that they don't have the ability to do that at the moment. It's that today they don't have the ability to do that. Tomorrow, when they're a bit more regulated, when they're, they haven't just come back from school, then they'll have the ability to do that. So then I might push them out of their comfort zone. I might suggest a family game of Uno, right? Yeah. But if we've just come back from a little walk...
by the way.
Yeah, I know.
That is insane, Mark. What are you doing?
But if we've just come back from being out, that's the worst thing I could do right then. We need that downtime. So we are constantly pushing them out of their comfort zone. I've spent most of their childhood mistakenly trying to push them out of their comfort zone until I realised that they weren't able to do stuff. And it wasn't because they didn't want to do it. It's because they weren't able to. So it's their reaction to pushing them out of their comfort zone that helped me understand their neurotype.
Yeah.
Without that, I wouldn't have realised, right?
Yeah.
And that's...
So no, Sheila, we won't be pushing them out of their comfort zone because it won't be fun for you, for us, or for any of the other nice people in this cafe.
Yeah. But that is, I think the response to that is that they are constantly being pushed out of their comfort zone. The fact that I'm standing here having this conversation with you is way out of their comfort zone. Look over there now, spinning around. Like,
look at the PDA clinging to my leg, trying to pull me away from you because they can't bear it.
It's already out of their comfort zone, Sheila. Back off.
Sheila.
I think the perception of what other people think is within or outside of our kids' comfort zone is much different to what we know. We understand our kids way better than they can. So, if taking them to some public event, to a monster truck rally, is I need to push them out of their comfort zone. I'm like, no, because that is so much further out of their comfort zone than you have any concept of. I'm not just going to shove my kids into a mosh pit so they can see how fun it is, Sheila. All right.
Although, knowing your kids as I do, I think Jay would fare pretty well in a mosh pit.
I mean,
he'd be windmilling.
He would be windmilling, but
Everybody's flying.
he'd be trying to get out, though, to be clear.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, there is that. But, however, for those brief few moments, he would be a
He'd feel
shining-
alive.
Oh.
The similar vibe to the pushing out the comfort zone is you need to challenge her more. I had that, a listener said that. Challenge her more.
Challenge her.
And again, our kids face unfathomable challenges every single day. So don't ever assume that they're not being challenged enough.
Yeah.
You know, some days leaving the house is a challenge. You know,
Exactly.
speaking
Some
to
days-
grandma on the phone is a challenge.
Oh, my Lord, yeah. For more reasons than one, but yeah. Oh, God. Where do you even begin with responding to people like that?
I think with all of this, really, it's just having in mind, just to push back and say, no, like they're being challenged in ways that you don't understand because you don't understand their neurotype. And, you know, they are being challenged simply to be out of the house right now because it's dysregulating and it's overwhelming for them. And they are facing untold challenges every day, yet still none of these challenges compares to the challenge of having to deal with your shit, Sheila.
Dickheads like you. Oh, but here's the thing, Mark. Do we, as parents and advocates, do we try to educate the Sheilas of this world? Or do we just tell them to fuck off?
Well. I mean, this is something that underpins all of this, isn't it? Is that ideally, really, you want those people to be able to leave the situation with a different light on the ignorant comment that they've just said and with a better understanding of how neurodivergence work. However, not all people are open to that. You know, a lot of people are so close-minded. You're just never going to convince them of that. So that's where you know, you can say fuck off. I wouldn't be so rude. But I would.
I have regularly. I'll
Really?
just piss off and mind your own business.
Really? I wouldn't. I just sort of, you know, I just sigh and shuffle away and judge them silently because I'm largely
You're a nicer
largely
person.
non-confrontational. No, it's just, you know, it's just how I choose to deal with it. But some people are open to this, and there are some of the comments that we're going to talk about in terms of the ignorance is not ignorance from a set position. It's ignorance because they don't understand enough. And sometimes you will have a comment that is ignorant that you can then go, oh, well, I can actually help here. I can help you understand it more. And that is definitely, it's certainly people that are in and around your kind of inner circle that might need a little bit of understanding about what your kids are facing. I think you can then push back on that and say, well, you know, and don't be eggy about it, but just say like, this is what this is what they're experiencing, and you probably don't know this, so just be aware of that.
Yeah. See, you're a better person, mate. Dot quite regularly tells me when I do just go, I'll just piss off. Dot will go, Mum, this is why you've only got one friend. This sort of thing right here, Mum. That's why.
More of these comments. One is, you're a pushover. Don't give him what he wants. Are you too afraid to say no? Was one that, like, a neuroshambler messaged me on the socials and said that. Like, are you too afraid to say no? And I think, you know, this is back to picking your battles, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, fear doesn't often come into it for me. It's more about, like, you know, is this worth standing my ground over in the scheme of things? Because what if I stand my ground, it's going to increase their dysregulation, which is going to make things a lot harder for all of us, and it's going to distress my child as well. Let's not remove that from the equation.
What does it achieve?
Yeah,
and I'm remembering. So it wasn't one of my kids. It was a girl that I used to have the absolute privilege of doing some one-to-one work with a couple of times a week. So we're in Tesco's. I can see that she is about to blow.
Okay.
All we have to navigate is getting up the lift to the car and then contained, and I can, you know, help her regulate all of those things. So we're stood by the lift and she's just repeatedly smashing the lift button because she needs that lift to come now.
Right,
now,
okay.
now.
Yeah.
So, funnily enough, I don't say no. I don't set a boundary about the lift button because I know what will happen if I choose
Yeah.
the fucking lift button as the hill
Yes.
I die
And also,
on.
the lift is going to come anyway. It's not going to
Exactly,
stop
well,
the lift coming.
So enter Sheila from Tesco's. Sheila comes barging up and just takes it upon herself to say, can you stop her from pressing those lift buttons, please? We had the lift break down last week.
Right, okay.
Okay.
Because of the button being overpressed.
Exactly. I resorted to sarcasm, which is apparently the lowest form of wit.
Sometimes it's a very dependable
Sometimes
go-to,
it's
though,
so
isn't it?
cathartic. So I went, oh my God, what, it broke down from someone pressing the button. Oh, that's bad, isn't it? Oh, that sounds quite dangerous. I mean, are you sure we should be using this lift at all if pressing the button makes it break down?
And how did Sheila respond to that?
Sheila just sort of harumphed and shuffled away again. But you know, when you just think,
Yeah. No, good on you,
for
though.
fuck's sake.
But that is it. It's choosing the hill, isn't it? Choosing what is a reasonable boundary to set, and where to sort of allow them to have it. And sometimes it's like buying stuff. They want to buy stuff, and and sometimes, I've got shit to do. I can either buy you the spider plant you've suddenly become obsessed with, or I can deal with a massive public meltdown, which no one wants. So I think we'll just get the spider plant.
Yeah.
But
And I think,
there's the assumption that we're not weighing all this up. That we're just
we're not
like
constantly in our heads going, oh, if I tell her to stop pushing the button, she's going to kick off down here, and I need to get her upstairs where I can contain the kick off and
Yeah. I mean, if we're honest as well, though, sometimes fear does come into it.
Yeah.
Like I expect if you've got a particularly explosive child, that is a legitimate concern. When they are dysregulated, they explode and they do resort to hitting and to physical stuff.
God,
So when they say, like, are you afraid to say no? Sometimes that is true.
Absolutely, yeah. Because all hell will break loose if I say no in this moment. And that doesn't mean I never.
It's a reasonable fear based on lived experience. It's not just, like, oh, you're scared of your kid. It's like, no, this is so much more complex than you realise.
Yes, my kid can and will do serious damage if I choose to lock horns in this moment. And that doesn't mean that I'm not the adult. It doesn't mean that I'm not setting boundaries. It just means that I know how to and when to set the boundaries.
Yeah, there's a lot more going on here than you possibly realise, Sheila. There's one more in this blaming the parents section. And there's been a lot.
That's a lot. I mean, I feel quite blamed.
Yeah, I know.
But I don't care. I don't give a shit.
There's a couple of versions of the same thing, but how will they manage in the real world? They need to learn. Right, that's one. And also, they won't be able to have reasonable adjustments like this in the real world. Which the neuroshuffler that wrote in said, what world are we living in then? Fucking Narnia.
I love them.
This is the real world, Sheila.
Fairly sure my house is real. I don't know.
Feels
it could
pretty
be an
fucking real.
elaborate hallucination. It's a tricky one because, again, it's one of those where there is a kernel of truth. There is a kernel of we somehow have to prepare these kids for adulthood and navigating the world. But surely the best way of doing that is not to absolutely decimate their self-esteem and cause them to become a nervous wreck.
Yeah, because they're not going to learn in that situation, are they?
No.
If you force stuff through. And it's a very pessimistic approach because I prefer to be more optimistic and think that if what we have an opportunity to teach them to advocate for themselves.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. And that's how they're going to navigate the world. We don't just sort of force them into stuff. We listen to them and we help them articulate what they're feeling and how they're feeling it, and help them to request accommodations that people can reasonably make for them. It's just a much more interactive way of teaching them.
Yes. And also the real world is changing at a rapid pace.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
people are becoming more and more aware of neurodivergent needs, but also the way in which we work and socialise is different. So actually, the real world might be our kids working remotely in a job that they're able to do from home with accommodations to mean that it might mean all sorts of things, none of which necessitate forcing them to the, what was your example, the monster truck rally? With maybe bringing the tiger with you just to really make sure they're encountering reality.
Yeah, 'cause that's it, isn't it? But also because at this age as well, school is such a big thing. School
my
is a
God,
huge thing.
yeah.
And if you think about how much, like the real world, they're not forced into school. They're not forced to sit in an environment that is dysregulating and overwhelming and forced to do things that they don't really see much value in.
Yeah.
All of that, when you get out of that, that's the real world.
That's the real one,
And giving them the tools to be able to advocate for themselves and to understand what environments they're comfortable in and can thrive in, and which environments they absolutely have no business being in because it's triggering for them, is a lesson that we're teaching them.
Yeah,
That's how they manage in the real world.
Yeah, that's how they do it. God damn it. You really wound me up, Mark. I was in a good mood.
Sorry.
And now I'm like that. God, I want to punch someone.
I really hope none of our listeners are called Sheila.
Sorry, Sheila.
Sorry, Sheila. It's not you, it's the other Sheilas.
It's that. And I'm picturing Sheila. She's got like one of those cat bum mouths.
And she's got glasses, and she sort of lowers her glasses to peer at you over them out of judgment. That is largely the suite of ignorant comments that you get in the realms of parent blaming. There is also the comments that you get where they are blaming the child. They're blaming the neurodivergent. And this, again, is steeped in ignorance and a lack of understanding about neurodivergency. So I'm going to go through some of these.
Oh, do it.
Right. One that a listener sent in was, sometimes it's a choice. Right? As in their behaviour. They're choosing.
Choice.
They are choosing to be dysregulated. Like, what planet do you live on?
Sometimes it's a choice.
Yeah. Like some days our kids wake up and simply choose to be autistic.
They do.
They just decide to be neurodivergent that day.
An extra sprinkling of autism on my cornflakes today, please, Mother. I'm going to
I'm gonna
go
fucking
for it.
go for it today, Mum.
Until you see this.
It's my choice.
Oh my God. No, it's not a choice.
It does make you wonder that if it is a choice, why they don't wake up some days and decide to be neurotypical for a change.
Can you imagine?
Because it's a lot easier from what I can see.
If they came down one morning and went, "Hello, Mum, did you sleep well?" We'd be like, "What the f- just happened?" But also, if it is sometimes a choice, who the fuck would make that choice?
Yeah.
No one in their right mind would choose to feel so anxious, so dysregulated, so overwhelmed that their only option is to kick off in this fine McDonald's, no child would make that choice.
Yeah, and that's the perception, isn't it? That their behaviour is caused by a choice to be disruptive or destructive or chaotic, and that is for some reason rewarding to our kids.
Yeah. And
It's like,
no,
it's
not a choice.
Yes, all kids who can do well want to do well.
Exactly.
And that's going back to that, isn't it? So the response to sometimes it's a choice. I mean, this conversation is a choice, and I'm choosing to opt out.
I'm choosing to tell you to fuck the entire way off.
This I was genuinely shocked by. This is a comment that someone made to one of the neuroshamblers, is they're not autistic, they're just horrible kids trying to get their own way.
Oh my
God.
God.
I mean, where do you start? There's so much in that one. They're so loaded. This is an angry person saying this.
I mean, I think you start with, Congratulations, because you've clearly become a doctor since I last saw you. Well done.
Thanks.
You are now able to diagnose children. This is amazing stuff.
This is like a triple whammy in terms of comments, because if you look at it, like first statement, they're not autistic. So let's just, airbrush out that diagnosis. Yeah. They're not autistic. So you're actually now completely denying autism as your opener. That's the first bit of your sentence. Yeah. You've waded in there.
You've gone in hard there, Sheila. Let's see where you go next.
Okay, then they're just horrible kids. So you called them horrible as well. So, there's all of that judgment based on their behaviour and your opinion of their behaviour. And then finally, the pièce de résistance is that they're just trying to get their own way. So
just where'd you go with that?
Triple whammy.
How do you? Other than a swift punch to the face, there's not much.
It's so ignorant. It's like it's so.
And again, I've got follow-up questions. Who said this?
Yeah.
Was it a friend, a family member? Was it a stranger? Was it? Are you still talking to this person?
I would hope not. I would hope not. Horrible kids trying to get their own way. It's like,
it reminds me of, he's not the Messiah, he's a very naughty boy. They're not autistic, they're just horrible children.
Yeah. There's a similar one to this that someone sent through as well, which I've heard a few times, is he's very manipulative. He's being manipulative. Like they're...
What?
So, yeah, this is the idea that your kids' behaviour is just so they get their own way. They're trying to get what they want. Again, it's a thing, isn't it? It's it seems a little extreme to be staging a 2-hour meltdown just so you can separate his chips from his beans.
Yeah. As manipulators go, he's not exactly skilled because...
Yeah, he could have just asked, to be honest.
Yeah, I'd probably said yes.
Yeah, but there is this view that children are manipulative. Our neurodivergent children are manipulative, which I've covered on several episodes previously. The Am I Raising an Arsehole episode, we discussed that one. And some other ones. But again, the explosive jar was quite helpful for me here, of going, our kids aren't being manipulative, because that implies a Machiavellian level of forethought and scheming that they're just not capable of.
And, he's 4 years old and he's got a marble up his nose.
Plotting to overthrow you.
But it's really interesting. So historically, that's what they used to think about babies, isn't it? That if your baby cries, they are manipulating you into being picked up and carried and loved and...
Mollycoddling again, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. And we would now look at that and say, well, that is pig ignorant and bordering on child abuse.
Yeah, just leave them to cry it out. That's a similar mentality, right? Isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a combative approach to parenting, isn't it? It's like, don't give in, don't let them win. It's it's a winner v loser mentality to parenting, which is it's baffling to me. I think it's quite an old school approach again, isn't it?
Yeah. And maybe we have all internalise some of those approaches somewhere, because I don't know about you, but I was raised very much in the era of you will do what adults say. Maybe it just pops out.
I think that people parent initially the way that they were parented, unless it was like an absolutely traumatic childhood, in which case you go the opposite way. But if you feel like you've got out of childhood pretty much in one piece, and you largely respect your parents, then you sort of follow along the same lines. I know that I did when I first started out, but it didn't work, right? Setting boundaries and then going, we're going to, and sticking to those boundaries no matter what, and instilling punishment. I tried that. It didn't work. So guess what? I updated my views. I did I learned a bit about it. I thought about it. I discussed it with Tam. We tried different approaches and noticed that some of the other approaches worked. But if you're neurotypical and you've started down that route and you haven't encountered that friction, you haven't encountered that failure, right? And your kids just do that, then you just assume that works for all kids, and therefore
exactly
cut and paste on everyone. And if you're not doing that, then it's because you're not pointing at the boundary hard enough.
Yeah. You're not shouting loud enough, and if you do that, then they will. And it comes back to the notion you have to parent the child you've got.
Yeah.
There is no point applying neurotypical parenting styles to a neurodivergent child because it won't work.
Yeah.
You can lock horns as much as you want. You will lose every single time. So just do it differently.
And I think all of this does boil down to that, doesn't it? To the fact that neurotypicals don't understand that neurodivergents need to be parented differently.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that you're not being neurotypical enough. You know, or you know, conversely, because not only are they looking at your parenting and say, well, that's not, you know, that's not like my parenting and therefore you're wrong. Yeah. They're also looking at your kid's behaviour and seeing that that is something that needs to be cured. That needs to something that needs to be squished. And it's like, dude, if you look at meal times in my household, don't squish that. It's fucking glorious. It's absolutely like it was like yesterday my parents were over and it was like my parents get it now. But they are, and it's so lovely to see that my parents are just like, they're just doing their thing. Because they were just twirling around and roaming around with food and chatting. They were chatting so nicely and absolute nonsense. Like it was a joy. But if you don't know that that's how they communicate and that's what they need to be regulated and happy, you would look at that and be appalled and you would want to squish it. But I see that and I love that and I thrive on that now, knowing that they're happy and that the noises that they make are fucking weird, but happy noises.
They're happy noises.
Yeah. And that's the kind of behaviour that doesn't need to be squished.
No. Of course not. And they're eating, right? So surely that is the goal of a mealtime, is that people
job
eat.
Done.
Does it matter whether that's like crouched on the table like a gargoyle with fists full of grated cheese? Not really.
No. So I think that's it. It's coming from a double misconception. It's coming from a misconception that their behaviour is something that needs to be parented out of them. And it's also coming from a misconception that your parenting is not kind of autocratic enough to take on that challenge. It's like, no.
Yeah. No. Wrong. Both counts.
There's one here that I was sent from a lot of different people in different guises, and it's one that encompasses that sort of blame of the child and blame of the parent. And also encompasses this complete denial, is they're fine when they're with me.
Oh, good God.
She's fine when she's with me. They're fine in school. They seem perfectly fine to me. Lots of different variations of this one. And this is, that's a hard one to take.
Isn't it?
Because they're casting doubt on the diagnosis. Yeah. I think fundamentally they're sort of saying, well, you're making this shit up.
That's the subtext, isn't it? That this is a parent who is just inventing these issues for their child.
Yeah.
I mean, they look fine, don't they? A child who is terrified and therefore masking and therefore squishing all of the things about them that make them them might look fine from the outside, but they're not. Yeah. They're not fine. They are stressed beyond belief. Yeah. And that is going to explode like a tsunami of shit the minute they get back to the place where they feel safe. Yeah, and that's why I think this way, if people say that, because they don't see what happens behind closed doors. They don't see what happens when your kids get home and they do unmask, or they just, regulate in whichever way they know how to. But it is quite a fun one to respond to, because you can point that out, right? You can say, the reason they're fine with you is because they don't trust you. I love it.
Right? They're masking. They're choosing to mask in front of you because you don't make them feel safe, right? So you're not seeing the real them, okay? Yeah. And now one day, hopefully, they're going to trust you enough to unmask in front of you, and then you will know. You will know the real them, and you'll see the real them.
In their true, glorious technicolor.
Exactly. They are going to be stimming and twirling and climbing on your sofa and talking over you, and there is no greater endorsement to you as a person than if they share that.
Yeah.
So until then, You know, they might seem
Until
fine, but please be aware that just being around you has taken an enormous amount of effort. And I'm starting to understand how they feel.
Yeah. I have come across this so often with parents that I'm supporting in meetings at school and it's always that little pursed lip implication at the end of, well, they're fine in school.
Yeah, there's discipline in school, isn't there? That's that. It's school is quite a big one to hear that from, because you're looking to them for support.
Yeah. And instead you're being told, well, it's being implied, because no one ever wants to say it out loud. And God, I remember supporting one parent, and so she'd become so embittered about this constant being told they're fine in school, and the child saying, Mum, I can't go. In the end, she said to her child, well, look, why don't you start telling them in school how you're feeling and showing them, and maybe they'll understand. And even that was then twisted and interpreted as, well, Mum's now coaching them to behave badly.
Fuck's sake.
Isn't it? Parents really can't win, can they?
Yeah, I mean, if you get a good Senko who gets it, or good supportive teachers, then that's great. But one of the reasons that the diagnosis journey is so hard sometimes is because they're fine with me. They don't see it, and you know, that's a really difficult thing to get around.
I'm depressed.
Okay, sorry. I get that it's you know, this has been it's quite a lot to deal with, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what we'll do is we're going to pause this part of this recording now. So we'll do, there's a bunch of other ones for future episodes. So I've got some, you know, when people give you practical advice that they're absolutely certain is going to work.
I love
the ones that rank autism and decide how severe it is. You know, ones that undermine their neurodivergency. There are ones that literally deny it exists. There's the complete fallacy around neurodivergency and those misunderstandings. And there's also the completely batshit mental ones, which I'm really looking forward to, because there's some that I got sent us.
Like, you just like that.
So that's going to happen in part 2 of this one.
Hey!
But for now, we're just going to kind of we'll do a bit more uplifting, and we're going to look at the positives.
It's not all rubbish.
Okay, so yeah, we're going to look at the positives of having to deal with tackling ignorance. I think partly it builds up a bit of an armour. The amount of times you have to deal with it, you know, you're significantly less apologetic as time goes on. And you build up responses that you can use, and you stop giving a shit.
Yeah.
The other thing is, it weeds people out quite soon.
You definitely find out who your people are and who the people that you just don't want anywhere near your kids are, and that's okay. That's, you know,
I think there's a lot to be said for that. Like, genuinely, some of the stuff that people have said, you're like, yeah, you're not listening. I've told you all about our journey. You still don't get it, so you know, fine, okay. I now know.
It's been fun, but goodbye.
Yeah. And you know, the other positive about tackling ignorance, which we touched on a little bit earlier, is you can educate people. It is possible for people to learn and to grow, and you know, that was, and it's not an easy thing to do, but we are in a position where if they flag that there's a deficiency in their understanding of your kids and their neurotype, you can then, given the right situations, given that, you know, just assuming you have enough spoons, you can then help to shape their understanding of it, because education is the only thing that really eradicates ignorance.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, taking these opportunities to talk to people about neurodivergency and tell them how that shows up in your kids in different ways is, you know, it's a really positive thing. It's exhausting. It takes a lot out of you, but it's an opportunity to eradicate the ignorance that you see in the world.
And things are changing. I swear it's glacial, but things are changing from when, I mean, it's 18 years now since he was diagnosed at 3, my eldest. And there's been a considerable drop-off in the number of ignorant comments as the years have gone by.
Yeah, which is great.
And maybe we will reach a point where people just aren't so ignorant, or if they are, where they just keep that ignorance in their own heads and don't share it with us.
I think it'll be a two-tier thing. I think, firstly, people's understanding of neurodivergency is improving. It's being talked about more. And also, crucially, a lot of these ignorant comments for older people who are ultimately going to die out.
Wow.
So, I mean...
Wow.
I'm just looking at the long term. We're going to wait them out.
Die. It just gets better and better.
Neurodiversity Champions.
Okay, let's look at some neurodiversity champions now. These are people that are doing wonderful things in the world of neurodiversity and awareness. These are individuals or organisations. Have you got anyone, Joe, that you want to bring to the table?
I do. And it's a personal one for me. So Tina, who I won't use surnames, but who I've known for a number of years, and she is absolutely incredible. She has set up a work experience placement for my daughter.
Oh, amazing.
In a care home, and she has just created this bespoke dot-shaped package so that Dot can go and experience success.
Oh,
and
amazing.
Dot is having a brilliant, she calls them her oldies. She's having the most joyous time working with her oldies. So Tina, you are my personal hero, and I can never ever, and I know she listens, so I can never ever thank you enough.
Oh, that's wonderful,
you are my
though.
hero.
Having people who are, like you say, but like crafting, opportunities for our neurodivergent kids to thrive and presumably making the relevant accommodations for that.
Dot's got a quiet space. They've got I don't know why this tickled me so much, but they did a fire safety plan, and in the plan there is a designated member of staff who must just grab Dot and get her out of the building.
I love it.
Because they recognise that actually if loud bells go off, Dot's most likely response is going to be freezing.
Yeah.
Just incredible
That's
stuff.
amazing.
And I'm so happy about it.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
Tiny epic wins.
Tiny epic wins now. These are moments that in a neurotypical family would not really even be considered wins at all. But in our neurochambolic families, they are epic wins. And I had one recently because it was recently half term and I had the kids. And we played Frisbee in a park. All of us together.
That's incredible.
I took everyone to the park on my own, obviously, and I was like, just need to get out of the house. Sometimes on half term, like, look, let's just go out, have a little, just venture outside like curious badgers, and we'll see what we can find, right? And
see what chaos.
And I was like, I've made lunch, but let's have a picnic, right? We'll just go to a park. So I put all the lunch in a bag. I was like, let's go. And Otto was already a little bit dysregulated, and he likes being outside. Like, he likes it, but for whatever reason, he was feeling a bit dysregulated. So I decided to just cram a Frisbee into my bag so that if he needed it, I could sort of just throw it, like exercising a dog, right?
Like a dog.
Very
just
much,
fetch,
very
Otto,
much.
fetch.
Yeah. So I could just like throw the Frisbee and get him out of his head. Like I've spoken about this previously. If he's doing something physical, he doesn't feel the anxiety because he just taps straight into the physical.
Yes.
So we sat down for this picnic and we're eating the picnic and Jay's enjoying it and India's enjoying it and Otto is not eating and he's sort of just really dysregulated. I didn't really know what was up. So I just went, Otto, go long. Yeah. And he just went, what? And I showed him the Frisbee and his eyes lit up and he was like a dog. He just kind of ran off into the distance. So I threw this Frisbee to him and he instantly brightened up and we start doing this Frisbee. Yeah. And Jay and India are eating. And then Jay went, can I play? And I was like, what? That is unheard of for Jay.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, of course. So then he joined in and then India didn't want to be left out. So she joined in. And we played frisbee for about half an hour, spontaneously in the park, in the sunshine. And I was just like, I'm doing it, I'm being neurotypical.
Well, you're like, look at me, I'm parenting.
Genuinely.
This is amazing.
Other people would have walked past and go, well, there goes a truly neurotypical family. That's for sure. I don't know much about their family, but I'm sure they're all wired in the same way.
Oh, how excellent.
It was amazing. It was
what
like
a joyous thing.
Yeah, of course, spontaneous. It wasn't, it was so that is my tiny epic win because it was an enormous.
That is fun.
I am much fun.
Delighted for you. No, that's brilliant.
Thank you.
What the flip?
Okay, we're going to what the flip moments now. These are moments where our children will say and do things that completely perplex us and leave us scratching our heads. I mean, I love it. These are the little windows into just quite how neurodivergent our kids are. Do you have any what the flip moments?
I would like to hear yours.
Okay.
Because yours always crack me up.
Well,
so I'm going to remain quiet and just soak it up.
I don't know if you've been listening to him recently, but India has been coming out with more and more of these. So, like India, when she was masking early on, it didn't have much to do with what the flip moments, but now she's coming out with some corkers. My favourite one from recently was, are we leaving this very second? And I went, yes. And she went, well, that second has passed now, so we don't have to go.
You were outmaneuvered.
I was totally outmaneuvered. I loved it. I was like, touche.
God damn it.
Well played.
Dear.
And the other one I had very recently was from Jay, because I know you love a Jay one.
Yeah.
We were messing about and we were having a dance off for some reason, not quite sure why or how that evolved. And Jay didn't want to join the dance off, but he offered to be the judge. And India was not on board with this idea because she complained that he was not going to be fair. And Jay's response was, who would I be partial towards? I hate you all.
I love it.
It's like, yeah, fair enough. And she accepted that as well.
You'll all just shrug and go, fair enough.
Yeah, exactly. So she let him judge.
It's true.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so that is it for part one of this Tackling Ignorance episode of Neuroshambles. Firstly, Joe, thank you so much for coming back and for going through all of these, because it's been both cathartic and probably quite triggering in some ways as well.
Thank you for having me. But yeah, I'm exhausted now.
Okay, so go and have a lie down before we record part two, if that's all right. I will also say a huge thank you to the listeners, not only for listening and spreading the word and giving me lovely reviews and nice comments on the socials, but also any of you who've emailed in or contacted me on the socials in response to this, because it's been really nice hearing the crazy shit that you're having to deal with as well, and hopefully sort of tackling them on your behalf and discussing them. So thank you for that. And there will be part two coming up very soon. But for now, I just will remind you of the socials. We're on Instagram and Threads and Facebook and TikTok. If you've got anything that you want to email in, please feel free to email me at hello@neuroshambles.com. But other than that, all that remains for me to say now is have a nice life.